Welcome to the Luke Macias Show. Today we are going to finish our three-part series, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of the legislative session. I appreciated something that Representative Andy Hopper said. He said, I'm going to be honest with you. This wasn't the most conservative legislative gathering that ever existed in the history of legislators, but we did get some good conservative policies, and I'll tell you the wins and the losses. And that's really what this three-part series has tried to focus on. The first part being a very long list of conservative policy that we fought for a long time that became law this session, thanks to the governor pushing it, the lieutenant governor pushing it, and the House of Representatives having a wider path and a more conservative coalition that is advancing these conservative policies. The second part was the bad, the fiscal, the lack of fiscal restraint, and therefore then the lack of property tax relief and real reform that's going to lighten the burden of your property tax bill. And today is the ugly. We have things to cover that were obvious misses that we could have gotten easily this session. Let's get to the show. Before we get into the ugly of the session, I want to tell you just a handful of things. First of all, the governor has called a special session for July 21st. So there will be 30 days from July 21st to August 21st that we will have a chance to pass additional conservative policy. Some of the things he has put on the call so far, many of them are bills that he vetoed that he is saying need to be done better. And then also there's one or two bills that went into law that he's saying did pass, but he would like the legislature to review them further. This is also an opportunity for conservatives to get a number of conservative policies put on the call if the governor does decide to do so. The governor has the ultimate authority to decide, what am I going to do? What am I going to allow to be discussed in this 30-day period of time? I'm grateful that he's called people back. I am upset that he literally scheduled this thing for the first week of our vacation, or I guess the only week of our vacation. And some of the people that work with me know that I have had my last two vacations somewhat ruined by other people in politics making poor decisions. And I'm not saying that the governor has made a poor decision to call back a special session. What I am saying is that he could have done it in August, because I had my vacation in Florida scheduled for July 23rd through the 28th. I booked the tickets. I had enough points. All of our kids were all flying there. And then he says, hey, let's start a special session on the 21st. So we have delayed our vacation to later this year. So we've got a little window when the special session ends before school starts, and we will go to Florida then. My family has not seen Florida beaches. I grew up in Panama City for 2 years. My dad was stationed there at the Red Horse Squadron, which is a training facility for civil engineering commanders. They had like EOD bomb squads. We got to actually use like the robots that they diffuse bombs with, and we'd do fire drills and get up there on the fire truck. It was super cool because my dad ran it, and so every time we'd show up, people acted like we were important. Hello, Mr. Macias, hey, you're the commander's son. And so it made us feel really cool. And we got to walk around this facility that they trained all these officers in and gave them, enough expertise in all the little areas that they would eventually potentially have command over if they continued to rise in rank. And so we were going to go to Panama City. I love the beaches there. I haven't been there in a while. My wife's never been. My kids have never been. And the governor of Texas decided we're not going to go in July. The rumor had been that a lot of the legislators were told, hey, make your trips in June, July, and then, be ready to come back if we call you back. But alas, late July, special session. Also, Nate Schatzline announced for state Senate because Kelly Hancock has assumed the position of comptroller in the state of Texas and has decided to run for comptroller as a result, making that a very busy three-way race between Don Huffines, Christy Craddock, Kelly Hancock, and that has opened up the Senate seat. So SD9 is open, and Nate Schatzline has announced for that seat. So many of you know Nate. He is a conservative champion and a warrior who's been fighting in the legislature to advance conservative policy. If he is the next state senator, that will be a big win for conservatives and an upgrade. Nate Schatzline is considerably more conservative than Kelly Hancock, who is one of the more moderate members of the Senate. He voted this session to water down taxpayer-funded lobbying, literally like to keep these Marxist groups like the Texas Association of School Boards funded with your taxpayer dollars. So Nate Schatzline would never do something like that. So if Nate Schatzline is to replace Kelly Hancock, that's a massive upgrade and makes it even easier to pass more conservative policy in the Senate. Okay, now I want to get to our list of what made portions of this legislative session ugly when we come back.
Are you worried about your kid's future? You should be. I'm Charles Blaine with Texas Tomorrow. This is a show where we're going to talk about the issues and the people that are pushing the policies that concern your family, your home, and your kids. Catch Texas Tomorrow every Thursday.
If somebody tells you this Texas legislative session was amazing, and that's all they say, they're probably not being honest. If they say this legislative session was an abject failure and the worst ever, they're not being honest. So this series, the good, the bad, and the ugly, is supposed to give you that window. And I think if I did the whole thing in one show, it wouldn't adequately cover what transpired. And what I seek to do is to give you enough details beyond what you would get in just kind of this big picture, newsy presentation. So I broke it up into 3 parts. The good. If you haven't listened to the good, go listen to the good. Then the bad. Now the ugly. So if you just listen to this episode and share it with your friends, that's fine. But if you're listening to this episode and you leave the episode going, everything in Texas stinks, that's because you didn't listen to the good. So the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, here's how I've defined the good, which was conservative policy, a breadth and broad amount of conservative policy that passed this session. The bad was, hey, we spent a lot of money, and as a result, we really just didn't have a strong conversation going into the session with a massive surplus about returning that money to the taxpayers. We returned very little of it, which means the relief that you get is going to be minimal and in some cases non-existent. And we didn't crack down on appraisals like even Governor Abbott sought to do in his State of the State address. That bill did not move. So that was a missed opportunity. But the ugly to me are going to be obvious, popular Republican policies that there is no excuse for us not passing. And I'm going to try to pull the curtain back and talk about those policies. Now, many of these policies passed the Texas Senate and died in the Texas House. That's just the reality. The Texas Senate started sooner, and they passed a lot more conservative policy. And some of you are frustrated with different things that Lieutenant Governor Patrick did in this session, but I will say one of the reasons I do think that Lieutenant Governor Patrick is so essential to moving our state to the right is that as I go through this list today, you're going to be reminded of a significant amount of conservative policy that could have happened if the Texas House had let it happen, and that the Texas Senate took time to address. And this is honestly a small list. This is not holistic because I'm really busy and I haven't had time to make an entire holistic list, but I think this will give you an understanding of many of the ugly portions of our session. We're going to start with the State Affairs Committee. I have said this several times in several interviews I've done, but I think that the State Affairs Committee in the Texas House was more liberal under Dustin Burrows than it was under Dade Phelan. Now, I will also give Speaker Burrows credit and say that many of the other committees were much more conservative. So there were several committees in the Texas House that were much more conservative than they were under Speaker Phelan. Some of that is due to the fact that Speaker Burrows also had dozens more conservative members, so he could spread them out. And I will give him credit in his committee assignments as well and say that Speaker Burrows could have been much more punitive in his committee assignments, but he actually did seek to, I think any observer would say that he sought to take a lot of these people, many of them who opposed him, and still put them into some positions where they could have an impact on meaningful policy. So he deserves credit for that. There are a number of committees that should not have had the makeup they had, and the biggest one is state affairs. There are a number of very liberal Republicans that should not have been chairman. One of them is Ken King, and one of them is Gary Van Dever. And if Ken King was going to be a chairman, he could have been a chairman of a committee that didn't put him in a position to kill as much conservative policy as he ended up killing. The State Affairs Committee alone, Chairman Ken King, killed SB 2880, which is a bill that would have cracked down on the abortion pill. This pill is killing 19,000 children a year. 19,000 babies are murdered every year because of this abortion pill. And Ken King had a hearing and sat on that bill for weeks. And then he acted like he voted it out when a bunch of conservatives had a press conference and called him out, and then never found the time or energy to prioritize getting the committee documents put together to get them to calendars. So by the time the last calendar was set, they still didn't have the bill that he had supposedly voted out. So he tried to get cute with it at the end, but ultimately the blood of those 19,000 children, if they are on anyone's hands, they are on the hands of Chairman Ken King. It's probably the most consequential bill he killed. He also killed taxpayer-funded lobbying. And the ban on taxpayer-funded lobbying, there were many bills that showed up in his committee that were filed by various Republican members. He did not give any of those bills a hearing. He also killed Senate Bill 19, which the Senate passed, which was a taxpayer-funded lobbying ban on contract lobbyists, which is probably, 80 million. People have given me so many different numbers, so it's really hard for me to figure out exactly how much money is spent, but it's hundreds of millions of dollars, in my opinion, on contract lobbyists and these associations. Now, in the Senate, the associations were carved out by Robert Nichols. Robert Nichols just announced he is not running for re-election. He is the most liberal Republican in the Texas Senate. That is a great opportunity for us to get an upgrade of a Republican who's more committed to Republican policies. He led the fight, followed by Kelly Hancock and a number of other moderate members, to water down that bill, which they did. So Ken King never even gave a hearing to the watered-down bill, even though he publicly pledged before the session started that he supported a ban on taxpayer-funded lobbying. He lied. He lied when he signed that pledge that was significantly crafted and drafted by Speaker Burrows himself. Next, Ken King killed Senate Bill 2330 that was filed by Senator Tan Parker and passed the Texas Senate. It is a great bill. It stops the taxpayer subsidization of the collection of union dues. Here's what you might not know. Your and my tax dollars are spent facilitating the funneling of over the last decade. We have facilitated and funded the funneling of $65 million to national Marxist union dues, unions that collect the dues of their members. These are the national teacher unions, the national county and municipal workers, all of these groups. You have to understand that their national unions spend 95% of their money going directly to competitive elections for Democrats. I want you to think about this. In the last election, we barely lost Nevada, Arizona, Michigan. These are states that we barely lost. And private individual Republican patriots were spending millions of dollars to try to win those U.S. Senate seats. And do you know who was funneling millions of dollars against us to the Democrats? All of these Marxist leftist national unions. Did you know that your taxpayer dollars from Texas facilitate the funding in the last 10 years of $65 million to those organizations? SB 2330 would have stopped that. It passed the Senate. It went to State Affairs. It never even got a hearing by Chairman Ken King. SB 324 by Senator Lois Kolkhorst is the E-Verify bill. This was a huge accomplishment that the Texas Senate passed out E-Verify. Last session, it passed it out of committee for the first time ever. This session, it passed it out of the Senate for the first time ever. SB 324 by Lois Kolkhorst went to State Affairs, died in State Affairs. So those are 4 different bills. Abortion pills, taxpayer-funded lobbying, union dues, E-Verify. Just completely languish by the authority of one man, Ken King. SB 1798 was the in-state tuition ban by Mays Middleton. And I will say about this bill This unfortunately never passed the Senate. Now, some of y'all have seen the headlines that our president, Donald Trump, sued the state of Texas because we provide in-state tuition for illegals. And Attorney General Ken Paxton coordinated with and agreed with the Trump administration, and they settled that suit, and in-state tuition has been deemed unconstitutional. That is a huge win for Texas taxpayers. Now, I am still concerned that our universities, because they are run by a lot of weak people often, are going to try to find ways to make sure that the illegals that are on our public universities do not have their tuition go up. So that is going to be a whole battle in and of itself. And I will say this, we need to both remove in-state tuition from statute so it never gets enforced again. And then also we need to make sure that those here illegally, if they are ever in our colleges, are not getting any discount, that they are paying full freight. And so there are other things we need to put into statute. And my hope would be that if the Texas Senate moves to the right, as it looks like it might be, that we will have a better path, because that bill did pass out of committee. Chairman Creighton and Mace Middleton worked hard to get it out, but they never had the votes to pass it out of the Senate, sadly. So that is a missed opportunity. Luckily, Trump sued the state because we give illegals these discounts. And Governor Abbott applauded that, and the governor's office and the attorney general's office worked in coordination with that. So I'm very grateful for that. But we should have passed this bill this session. It got a hearing in the House, but the version in the House was completely watered down. So ultimately, this was probably a better win for us, having it won in the courts. Now we have to clean it up in statute. And I don't think we have the votes in the House or the Senate to actually do the cleanup the way we need to do it. So that is an unfortunate thing that happened this session. Senate Bill 406. Senate Bill 406 died in the Public Health Committee. And this is a bill by Mace Middleton that would end the government participating in the lie of the transgender ideology and movement that says a man can be a woman. Because if you are in Texas, you can go and submit a change to your birth certificate and have your birth certificate reflect the sex that you identify as. Meaning, if I, Luke Macias, am born in a Texas hospital, I was born in Germany on an Air Force base. But if I'm born in a Texas hospital, it says Luke Macias was born, sex, male, I can go into the state of Texas and say, hey, I want my sex to say female. And I'm Lucinda, not Luke. And the state of Texas will participate in that. That's nuts. So Senate Bill 406 said, we're not doing that. No way. Can't change it. That bill passed the Texas Senate in early April, plenty of time to pass, got referred to public health in mid-April, plenty of time to pass, never got a hearing. Chairman Gary Van Dever never even heard the bill. These are the type of wins that are given to Democrats that are completely and wholly unnecessary. A majority of independent Texas voters do not support the birth certificates being able to be changed from sex, male to female, because somebody thinks they are a female. More than 25% of Democrats don't believe that makes any sense. 90% of Republicans are with us, yet it never got a hearing. Senate Bill 406. HB 1088 by Representative Shelby Slauson. This is an incredible bill that was actually killed last session by the Calendars Committee. Okay? It was killed last session by the Calendars Committee, and it was killed this session, really seemingly in conjunction with the Judiciary and Civil Jurisprudence Committee and the Calendars Committee. It looks like they worked together. Ultimately, I can't tell you exactly what happened. Well, I can tell you exactly what happened, and then you can conclude what that means. Let me tell you what this does. HB 1088 is a bill that would say that if a detransitioner, remember the societal phenomenon we have is that these people are detransitioning who were lied to by the transgender movement, and then they go, no, I don't think I was a girl. I think I am a boy. I was born a boy. I would like my body restored to that of a male. And then the whole transgender medical establishment goes, oh, we can't do anything. Sorry. Oh, darn. We ruined your whole body. You are a man, but you'll never produce testosterone for the rest of your life because we put you on puberty blockers. And yeah, we did take away your genitals. So these detransitioners are suing the sick, evil doctors that butchered their bodies. That's a good thing. Did you know that these lawsuits stand a better chance in blue states, in many blue states, than they do in Texas? There's a law firm in Texas, in North Texas, that does a ton of these detransitioner lawsuits. And they told me, Luke, we have to look in other states because Texas's laws are horrible for these detransitioners, these people who are seeking justice. HB 1088 increases the statute of limitations from 5 to 10 years. Because right now, if a 16-year-old's body was butchered in Texas 2-3 years ago, they need to fully detransition and have the wherewithal to go to an attorney to sue their doctor by the time they're 21. And if they're 22 or 23 or 24, when they wake up to this reality, they can't sue. I'm okay with the statute of limitations being 50, 100 years. I think if you butcher someone's body when they're 15 or even when they're 20, I want them to be able to sue you till they're 100. I hope that they find the Lord at 75 and then go, oh my gosh, these people butchered me. I'm going to sue them. And I hope they sue you into oblivion. There was this conversation this session about mega verdicts. And I don't like, there's mega verdicts that I look, some headline will show up, right? And you go, this person sued this guy and won $50 million or won $500 million. And you read the $500 million verdict. And sometimes I read those and go, yeah, that doesn't make sense. I don't like that. But you know the kind of mega verdict that I would love? Jury awards butchered Texan $500 million from transgender clinic. That's what I want. Because these people are sick. HB 1088 died last session. So this session, Shelby Slauson files the bill again. It gets a hearing. Now, by the way, it was referred to JCJ March 7th. That already is late. And it's not late in the process because you have, 3 months, but I'm just telling you, it was filed in November of 2024. One of the hopes is that next session, these bills will start getting referred much quicker. But it was not referred until March 7th, even though it was one of the first 1,000 bills filed. In March 7th, when it gets referred, it is scheduled for a hearing on March 26th. Now, I will give Jeff Leach credit and tell you that that's relatively quick. I mean, he gets the bill, and within a couple weeks, he schedules a hearing. So they schedule it. They consider it in a public hearing on March 26th. They take testimony, and they leave it pending. Now, here's the thing, guys. This bill already had a hearing last time. It already got voted out last time. This is not rocket science. We know what the bill is, so it should move. Now, often what happens with bills like this is that groups that don't like them, let's say Texans for Lawsuit Reform, or one of these groups that don't like doctors being sued, and Texans for Lawsuit Reform is kind of a good example because they have refused to ever put in their bills carve-outs for these transgender doctors, right? So they don't want they want their legislation. If it protects one doctor, like if I told you, hey, pediatricians are getting sued all the time, unnecessarily, we're going to pass a bill to come down on that and protect our pediatricians because pediatric practices are important in Texas, you might side with me. You go, Luke, that's a good idea. What if I told you, oh, and the bill also protects all the transgender butchers? You'd be like, no, I don't want to do that. Well, TLR has refused to just say any bills we have that apply to doctors don't apply to transgender doctors. I hope that policy changes. They could change it at some point, but right now that's where they're at. So they don't like increasing statute of limitations. They don't like new causes of action. If a group like that wants a bill like this to die, they don't want to be public about it because it's very unpopular. So what they will often do, and Chairman Leach was very close to TLR this session, he worked very hard to pass a lot of their policies. They will just encourage the chairman to sit on it. Sit on the bill. Well, ultimately, even though Chairman Leach supports this bill, evidently he was a joint author of the bill, you would think that is a good indicator of his position on the bill. He should be fine with moving this bill forward. So where is it? Well, it's just left pending. March 26th, March 27th, March 28th, 29th. We got to April 1st, week later, April 8th, nothing. It does not get voted out until April 14th. That's a long time to sit on this bill. The clock is ticking. And the committee report is also not sent to calendars until April 28th. This is the other thing they do. Then groups that don't want this bill to die, they go, hey, just wait 2 or 3 weeks to vote it out. So they vote it out. They report favorably without amendments on April 16th. So does the calendars committee get it on the 17th or the 18th or the 19th? Nope. The 20th, the 21st, the 22nd? Nope. Committee report filed with committee coordinator on April 25th. Committee report distributed on the 25th and the committee report sent to calendars on the 28th. All of these little incremental delays mean that this bill does not get to calendars till April 28th. And one of the reasons that's done is because if he had voted the bill out on March 27th, then the bill definitely would have become law. It would have passed and become law. Gone to the Senate would have passed it. But he didn't hand it to Chairman Todd Hunter until April 28th, which meant that Todd Hunter only had to sit on it for a couple weeks. And ultimately, Todd Hunter did do that. Chairman Todd Hunter killed this bill. I don't know why this bill was not placed on a calendar. It could have been placed on a calendar, and it was not. So, unfortunately, HB 1088 is just an obvious win that was killed. And Chairman Leach and Chairman Hunter both have some level of responsibility for killing that bill. Senate Bill 18 was a Texas Senate priority and one of the few that died. And I've talked to you about really good bills that passed this session that deal with the transgender issue. But this bill had to do with these drag queen story hours that are being done at our libraries. Now, it was a very simple bill. If you as a library are going to host a drag queen, some pervert who dresses up like a woman and comes and reads books to kids dressed like a woman, that's weird. This guy should not be in our library. He probably should be in jail. All this bill said was, if you host one of these drag queen story hour things where you invite kids to be read to by some dude dressed like a woman, we're not giving you any money as a library. The state is going to say that puts you on a no funding list. That's a great bill. Senator Brian Hughes filed that bill. It passed the Senate. It passed the Senate in March with plenty of time to pass the House. It was referred to State Affairs on April 9th. Plenty of time. Scheduled for a public hearing on May 5th. They sat on this bill for a month. They didn't vote it out until May 13th. They didn't send it to calendars till the 14th. So again, that delay game, Ken King was he killed a ton of good policy, as I said, but some of this policy he just held for a while. And then he sent to calendars on the 14th, and still at that moment in time, Todd Hunter had plenty of time to pass this obvious bill that is a great, easy win for Texas. And instead, they considered it on the 25th and placed it on a calendar on May 27th. It was a calendar that they knew they would never get to. The day before, they put SB 13 on the calendar. SB 13 was a library bill that Brent Money fought to strengthen. Brad Buckley opposed him, but ultimately when Angela Paxson took it to conference, she got most of that Brent Money language back in and most of her language back in and restored that bill to a strong bill. That was placed on the day before. They knew that was going to pass, and they knew they killed SB 18 the second they held it for one more day to put it on one more day's calendar to kill the bill. SB 18, an obvious win that was missed. There were several health freedom issues. One was HB 3219. That was by Joanne Schaffner. This is a bill that would let you buy ivermectin over the counter. An obvious bill. A bunch of other Republican states have already passed this bill. Joanne Schaffner had a great bill. Texans for Vaccine Choice has started a petition to ask the governor to put this bill on the special session call and are trying to generate signatures. So I tweeted that out. Go to TexansForVaccineChoice.com, I believe is their website. I just Google Texans for Vaccine Choice and then I just click whatever website, but it's TexansForVaccineChoice.com. Sign that petition. Sign up for their email list. This is the type of stuff that they do. If you care about health freedom stuff, just sign up their email list, and then you'll get these opportunities to reach out to the governor's office, to call him, to sign a petition, to let him know you want to see this bill on the special session in late July to late August. Two other bills that died that were key, huge wins. These are probably the two most consequential vaccine-related bills this session. They passed the Senate. They died in the Texas House. SB 407. And SB 407 was going to say that if you are a healthcare worker, you cannot have a vaccine mandate. I want you to understand that many of you know this, but it is hard to find medical experts that aren't trying to shove vaccines on you. And one of the main reasons that is the case is they can't get a job without being fully vaccinated. All of the hospitals say we won't hire you if you have not gotten every single vaccine that Anthony Fauci tells you to get. Every one of them. So guess what? When that is a prerequisite to being hired by the hospital, it shouldn't surprise you that everybody at the hospital looks at you like you're an alien if you have not given your vaccine, every vaccine that Anthony Fauci says they should get, even when he's personally profiting from the vaccines they're getting. None of that should surprise you. So this just says, hey, we're not going to let all these medical facilities say you can't work here if you're not fully vaccinated, according to Anthony Fauci standards. And the other one, which is kind of the same problem, is SB 2119. And SB 2119 would say this: if you're a medical school in Texas, you can't tell people they have to have had every Anthony Fauci determined to be good for you because he's making money off of it vaccine. Did you know that they can say you can't come to medical school in Texas if you have not gotten every single jab that the CDC thinks you should get? So guess what? It shouldn't surprise you that it's hard to find a doctor to treat your child. Did you know that most pediatricians in Texas say, we're not going to see you if you haven't gotten every jab exactly to the CDC schedule? So why are the vast majority of these practitioners incredibly discriminatory to vaccine choice parents? Because they all had to get vaccinated with every single jab in order to even go to medical school. That bill passed the Texas Senate. That bill died in the Texas House. The last bill is HB 3225 by State Representative Daniel Alders. This is a library bill. Now, this bill died on the very last day that the Texas Senate could pass bills. And I might get this. I don't think I'm getting this wrong. It's a little over technical. Or not over technical, it just is a technical explanation. So the Senate either adjourned when they should have recessed, or recessed, didn't adjourn. But ultimately, in those final days, how you end each legislative day will determine whether you move on to the next one. And if you move on to the next one, then the criteria for what a bill needs in order to pass changes. Ultimately, the Texas Senate was passing a bunch of bills in that final day. They passed the gold bullion bill. They passed Shelley Luther's vaccine bill that says if you're going to advertise, then we can sue you for the harm that you give to Texans, inflict on Texans for a vaccine. And one of the bills that everyone anticipated passing was HB 3225 by Daniel Alders, which would say that books with pornographic material and inappropriate sexually explicit material will be categorized as such. And then a child with their library card won't be able to check the book out without parental consent. This is the lowest bar you could set, by the way. Like, imagine it says they can get it if the parent says they can. This is not that high of a bar. And the Democrats went nuts. They want the kids sneaking sexually explicit books home and reading them without their parents' knowledge. It's absolutely insane. Good bill by Representative Daniel Alders, 3225. It is one of the rare conservative policies that passed the House and then died in the Texas Senate. There are a number of other ones. I just didn't have time to pull them together. I think Cody Vasut had one or two bills that I recall really liking that passed over to the Texas Senate and then died in the Texas Senate. So there were a handful of bills that passed the Texas House and died in the Texas Senate that are conservative policy that were missed opportunities. But the biggest one that stands out was HB 3225. And I hope that that's another bill that the governor maybe puts on the special session call and we are able to get to in that 30-day period of time that the legislature is coming back into session. These bills, as I've covered them for you today, are what I think make up the ugliest part of the legislative session. So when people say, what was the good? What was the bad? What was the ugly? I wanted to make sure that we had 3 different shows that laid it out for you. So you have the good, you have the bad, and now you have the ugly. We have missed opportunities that were right there. Even some of these, I went into kind of the detailed timeline. You could see just such obvious opportunities to say, bring the bill up and vote it out. Why hasn't the bill been voted out? Why when the bill gets voted out, does it take 2 weeks? Now, if Jeff Leach said, well, the statute of limitations bill, we wanted to get the stuff right. We wanted to get it all right to make sure there wasn't a point of order. That's what the chairman will often tell you. We're getting it right so that there's not a point of order on the bill. Okay, well, if you're so concerned that we need to get it just right to make sure there's not a point of order in any of your committee documents, why didn't you vote the bill out the week after you heard it so that you had weeks to put all that together to get it to calendars? See, if you vote this HB 1088 out in late March, then you have 2 weeks to put all that together and nobody would look back and say, Chairman Leach, why were you dragging your feet on this bill? But when you drag your feet on every step of the way, it is much worse. And it gives Todd Hunter just this real small window he has to kill this bill in, and he did. Missed opportunities. I am still very grateful for the legislative session. I think the conservatives were able to achieve significantly, vastly more conservative policy than they have been able to in any time in recent history. And I think that that's something that y'all should also appreciate because you helped make it happen. I know hundreds, if not thousands of you who regularly listen to this show. And I see, we meet each other as I go out. Some of you donate to candidates. Some of you block walk. Some of you run conservative organizations. Some of you are on the SREC. Some of you are GOP county chairs. Some of you are staff in the legislative session for conservative lawmakers who are trying to push this. Some of you work in the various different statewide offices for statewide officers who are trying to advance these things as well. Some of you just vote very regularly in every single Republican primary, and you voted for conservatives. And some of you live in districts that flipped from moderate liberal Republican to very conservative Republican who's committed to conservative policies. Some of you are the members of the legislature in both branches that actually fought to make these things happen and authored many of these bills. You should appreciate what was accomplished this session. Because if you go back and listen to the good episode, there's no way you can leave and not say, wow, these are some very impactful policies that will have meaningful effects on our state. If you listen to this episode, you will walk away, and you should walk away very frustrated that obvious policies that would really protect Texans fell short, and fell short unnecessarily. If this list that I went through today had passed, there would still be really good conservative policy that died. This is not holistic. A lot of conservative policy died. But these were just obvious wins. So let's continue to organize and move our state to the right and work alongside people in government who want to make these kind of things become law. May God bless you, and may God bless Texas.